Voices here sounds very clear. Savings are grand, Bahama land. Family is there, bringing good cheer. Sun, sea, and sand, they'll understand. New Providence, San Salvador, Grand Bahama, Equatorial. Where voices sit, families trust for Christmas. Where voices sit, families trust for Christmas. Call Hillary and Yankee, call Abaco and Ronki, call Nanawa and Cobra Town and Fresh Creek. Get Islands too. Call your grandma and your grandpa. They'd love to hear from you this year. Where voices sit, families trust for Christmas. Where voices sit, families trust for Christmas.
Sign up for Rap Voice Bahamaland for as low as $14.99 a month with unlimited local and nationwide calling. You'll be entered to win your mortgage and utilities for a full year. Rap Voice Bahamaland.
Rap voices here, sounds very clear. Say things are grand, Bahamaland.
Public school teachers turning up the heat on government. A police officer and 4 others stabbed overnight in separate incidents. The Prime Minister faces pressure to account for his recent trip overseas, plus the touching story of the lost boys. The details of those stories and a whole lot more on the way. I'm Bonnie Toot, and NV12, the weekend edition, starts now. Topping news tonight, as the Bahamas Union of Teachers work to rule continues for a 4th week, President Belinda Wilson is not ruling out the possibility of a strike. Teachers here in New Providence will decide tomorrow on a strike vote. Now, if they vote in favor of a poll and then to strike, Wilson said during a news conference this afternoon that public school teachers throughout the country will not hesitate to go on strike and teach government a very important lesson.
We will continue to protest. We will continue to demonstrate despite any vile threats that would have come from the Director of Labor, who was totally out of order.
When public school teachers assemble at B.U.T headquarters Monday afternoon for a general membership meeting, Union President Belinda Wilson says at the top of the agenda is soliciting the support of teachers in New Providence for a strike vote. If the majority of members are in support of a strike vote, Wilson says she will write to the labor director asking officials to conduct a poll. And if they vote in favor of it on that set date,
then the teachers throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, who are members of the Bahamas Union of Teachers, will then go on strike. As I believe that the frustration level of teachers is very, very high at this time.
she dismissed as government propaganda Labor Director Robert Fackerson's suggestion that any industrial action taken by public school teachers would be illegal because trade disputes filed by the union against the government have been referred to the Industrial Tribunal. In light of growing unrest in the trade union movement, Wilson says she was taken aback by the position Fackerson took last week.
So we would really like for the Minister of Labor to specify which matters were referred to the tribunal, since we would have had so many of those matters. I want to also say that it is so sad that the Director of Labor would have allowed himself to be used to continue to spread the government's propaganda.
As of September 4th, Wilson says executive members have been denied access to school campuses between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. to conduct union business. She says this is in direct violation of the union's industrial agreement with government. The union has communicated with the International Labor Organization on two matters, including denied access to school campuses and health and safety concerns at Stephen Dillett and Uriah McPhee primary schools. Wilson made it clear the union will not give up.
We will be victorious in our fight because the law is on our side.
An off-duty police constable is said to be in stable condition tonight after two men armed with a knife and screwdriver attacked him on Elizabeth Avenue shortly after 1 this morning. He reportedly sustained injuries to the head. Police arrested two men ages 27 and 24 in connection with this morning's attack. The officer is among 5 people stabbed in separate incidents overnight. Less than an hour before that incident, police say a woman was stabbed in the thigh and back on Burnett Road by a man she knows. About 20 minutes before she was stabbed, 2 men were stabbed at a nightclub in Coral Harbor following a fight with another man. Meantime, the first incident happened in Jones Heights shortly before 4 p.m. Saturday when a man was stabbed in the upper back and arm during an altercation with a group of men. Now, all of these victims are said to be in hospital in stable condition. And Central Detective Unit investigators in Nassau are reportedly questioning several men in connection with the disappearance of 28-year-old Triska Brennan and immigration officer Shane Gardner, who were both reported missing in Central Andros last weekend. Assistant Commissioner Anthony Ferguson couldn't say how many people are being questioned, but told us the suspects are men and police are not at the stage to bring criminal charges. Ferguson revealed that there is evidence the officer's home was searched and that a firearm was discharged in that home. Additionally, he says Gardner's government-issued vehicle was found a distance away from his home. The two were reported missing around 1:45 p.m. on Sunday, November 24th. Family members say Brennan was last seen the day before. And as police investigate those incidents, a local support group is expressing outrage over this year's murder count, which hit 101 last week. Families of all murder victims, or FOAM, is calling on advocates to band together to get crime under control and attack the root of it. Christina McNeil has the group's take on what needs to be done.
Ma, we can see the way the crime rate that from the justice system we can see where the crime rate is headed, and we're not even at the end of the year yet. How much more do we expect to get killed? That's why we're back and again. It needs to be one voice between the Royal Bahama Police Force, the AG office, and the judiciary system. There needs to be one voice. It's sad, man. It's sad. People are getting angry. They're frustrated. They're bitter. And they're taking matters in their own hands. Women are being shot down like dogs in the streets of Nassau. And no one says nothing. These are mothers. These are sisters. These are aunts. And you know who is affected by this the most? The kids, the children. Where is the church in all this? Where's Urban Noel? Where's other non-profit organization? Where's the ministers? Where are they? That they had a crime for. What the crime for was about? Nothing happened. Marco law even started yet, Christina. When we going to get to let these criminals know hey, we mean business? When?
Candy Gibson is a familiar face on many murder scenes in the capital, providing comfort and support for grieving families. But with the recent murder of 4 people, including a mother of 2 on her front porch, Gibson says it's time for everyone to speak and act with one voice against crime and murder.
How is it that the criminals could come together, Christina, could come together and wreak havoc on the Bahamas? Because in case you hear it, there's the driver and there's 1-2 shooters. They're coming together. But we as Bahamians, we can't come together for nothing. Just tear and put each other down, teeth each other visions and run to the middle like his eyes. That's what we come together for? The criminals got more strength than us because they bind, they're pulling their resources together. The criminals got more rights in this country. They ain't fair no one. They ain't fair nothing, and they don't even fair the law.
Gibson says she would also like to see more cohesiveness between law enforcement and the judiciary. She says all too often police arrest suspects and haul them before the courts, only to see them released on bail and commit further crimes. She says if FOAM can make a difference without funding, then so can others in the fight against crime.
We go in our pockets, our personal pockets, and make sure these children are provided with counseling. While people want to be in their offices, we take counseling to people. We go out and we do an outreach ministry to the people. We make sure the children get groceries. We make sure they get snacks for lunch. We make sure they get new and used clothes. The stuff we do. We make sure that they're picking up or taking to church. The stuff what we do. Come on. One person alone can't do it.
FOAM is a non-profit group that advocates for families who have been affected by murder. Reporting for NB12, I'm Christina McNeil.
And the Bahamas has its share of problems, but certainly not like the civil unrest that led to a 12-year civil war in Sudan, killing more than 2.5 million people and displacing hundreds of thousands of people who fled the country. Among those to flee was a group called the Lost Boys of Sudan. Paige McCartney recently sat down to hear the story of one of them.
Alphonsion Deng's story is one of survival, but he says it's no different than the story of anyone else in the world who's had experiences that have shook them to the core, propelling them to see life differently. The Second Sudanese Civil War broke out in 1983 and lasted until 2005. It was a war between the country's central government and the Sudan People's Liberation Army. The civilian death toll is one of the highest of any war since World War II, with more than 2.5 million people being killed and more than 4 million being displaced. Deng said he was about 7 years old when the war started. He recalled seeing at that young age countless men and women dropping to the ground riddled with bullets after the army and rebels raided his village.
There was gunfire, and then several more gunshots, and then houses were on fire. And my mother, ushered us to go hide in the grass. And these were like the earliest days of the arts, and then the entire village was consumed with these men on horses, and they just kept shooting people, and I see people that fall down and they don't get up.
The war destroyed everything. Deng said there were no schools, no churches, no clinics. During one of the many attacks on his village, his father and 2 sisters were killed. That's when he fled his village, becoming one of the Lost Boys of Sudan, a name given to more than 20,000 young male survivors by aid workers in refugee camps. Most of them were orphaned and traveled by foot for years in search of safe refuge, on a journey that carried them over 1,000 miles across 3 countries to refugee camps. Over half died along their epic journey due to starvation, dehydration, sickness, and disease, and attacks by wild animals and enemy soldiers. Experts say they are the most badly war-traumatized children ever examined.
And I fled for my life, and I never returned back. So I found myself with the masses fleeing the same violence, and I walked along with them to find sanctuary or safety within the country.
Deng said he traveled for 5 years from refugee camp to refugee camp until he made his home at the Kakuma refugee camp and finally went to school and grew up. That's when United States aid and immigration workers learned the story of the young lost boys and offered them asylum in America.
They heard about our story of survival, of walking from age 5, 6, 7, 8, boys ranging from that age, that young, and escape bullets, wild animals, and survive thirst and starvation. So when they heard our story, they decided to give us an opportunity. Those of us who survived, there were about 100,000 young boys that started the journey. 16,000 survived. And out of 16,000, 3,800 were chosen for resettlement in the U.S., and I was one of them.
Now 31 years old, Deng lives in San Diego, California. After college, he started working as a public speaker, sharing his story with colleges and corporations as a means to motivate them. But he says the memories still haunt him. He traveled back to Sudan in 2008 and was finally reunited with his mother, who he had not seen since he fled for his life 19 years earlier. Deng doesn't consider himself a victim. He said this was just the path his life was supposed to take, far from what he imagined as a boy when his dream was to follow his father's footsteps, raising cattle, cultivating the land, and marrying as many wives as he could, as is the culture in his native land. But he said he had to change his dreams as life's path changed.
It never occurred to me that something such would happen, and it did. So now the way I'm living my life, I am living my life every single day, being aware that the same problem that I'm going through, that I went through, people are facing them all over the world. The injustice, oppression. It is a form of entropy that is in the human consciousness, and it is still at play every day.
The young survivor said it's only through sharing your story that humans can relate to each other and understand each other, causing tensions and strife to end. For MB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
Coming up, a multi-million-dollar development making tremendous progress. Plus, the Chamber of Commerce prepares to mount its own VAT campaign. The details of those stories and more on the other side of the break.